Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm really glad you're here, and we're gonna. By the way, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the whole Paris and Lebanon. I know I brought it up already, but we're gonna say a prayer for them in a little bit at the end of the message time, and we're even gonna sing a song that I think Chris and I talked about, and it fits and it applies with what's going on in our world and even why we didn't know about Beirut, but we heard all about Paris. And it's called Tear Down the Walls. And that's what we're praying will happen through Jesus, is that walls will be torn down. And that's really what part of this gospel is about. We build up walls sometimes. And what is a wall there for? Give me an answer. What is a wall there for? Anybody? Protection to keep what? I heard... To keep something in or something out. Yeah, like when we have little children, it's definitely both. But for us, it was more to keep something in. Because we did not want our little children just to go anywhere they wanted to, and so it was like a gate, like over there. But it's also to keep something out. And I think for us as adults, that's more what it's about. To keep something out. And so walls keep something out, and oftentimes they keep certain people out. And sometimes we make generalizations and stereotypes, and Jesus really talks about all of that here. And so what I want to do, because our passage is the entire 14th chapter of Luke. Yeah. It's a good thing the Texans are playing Monday night, right? Because you don't have to rush home for a noon game. Now, I won't be that long, but the 14th chapter, there's a lot here. I want to try to address it. And what I'm going to do is, the first parts, I'm going to read, talk. And so it'll be up on the screen, and wherever I am, just keep it there, until I go further, so that we can think about that. And then I'll let you know when we're going to go further. But we're going to be stopping, so I'll say stop when we're going to stop. And then I'm going to just share a little bit and talk about some of it. Then we'll keep reading. But then the very last part, we're not going to do that too. We're going to read it, starting in verse 25 all the way to the end. We're going to read that straight through. Now, I'm going to jump to the end, the very last verse. You don't need to put it on the screen. It's okay. And I'm going to just read to you the final words of chapter 14, which I want to start with, because I think they're very important for us. And what Chris was just praying in the song we just sang, I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. I'll stand my soul, Lord, to you, surrender all I am or all I have. Everything is yours. So here are the words of Jesus to close out chapter 14. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Not everyone will hear what Jesus is saying in chapter 14. It was true then to the thousands of people that he was saying it to. It's true now in churches all over the world. Even us here today. Not everyone, maybe, will hear. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Let him hear. Let him soak it up. Let him take it to heart. And then let him follow it. That's what Jesus is saying. So let's dig in. Let's start reading at the beginning of chapter 14, and then I'll just stop and give you a little commentary till we get to the end. The whole first part goes together, and it's grouped into a couple little sections. It says, one Sabbath, when he went to dine, this is giving us the scenario here. When he went to dine at the house of a ruler of the Pharisees, they were watching him carefully. They're looking to trap him. And behold, there was a man before him who had dropsy. I love that word. That's just a great word. That's my only commentary there. And Jesus responded to the lawyers and the Pharisees. He's done this before, and we've gone over it before, but he does it again. He responds to the lawyers and the Pharisees, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Because they've already pounded him about this. So he comes right out and he just asks them, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But in verse 4 we continue. But they remained silent They had no answer. And he took him and healed him and then sent him away. And he said to them, "Which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on a Sabbath day, will not immediately pull him out?" And they could not reply to these things. So Jesus once again just shows his authority, even the authority to heal on the Sabbath, that he is the one who sets the rules. The Sabbath was made for the Son of Man, not man for the Sabbath, as he said earlier in the chapter. And so he's just reminding us once again, and Luke throws this in, because he gives us the venue now for what is happening. Jesus is dining with the Pharisees. He's surrounded by these religious leaders who are all Jews, who have this mentality that they are the only ones who will be saved, and that the message was God's to Abraham, and it only involved the Jews and wouldn't involve anybody else, and we're about to get to that here in just a moment. So he notices who's sitting around and how they handled themselves. So verse 7, he told a parable to those who were invited when he noticed how they chose the places of honor, saying to them, "When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in a place of honor, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him, and he who invited you both will come and say to you, 'Give your place to this person,' and then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit in the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher.'" Notice he didn't say to the highest, but move up higher. "Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Jesus is speaking to something that I think is very applicable today. People still do this. We want that place of honor. And I think we may not have a wedding feast in the same way. I mean, we do, and we even have table places, and so-and-so sits here, and so-and-so sits here. Well, you don't go move the bride's spot and just take her seat. That's the spot for the bride. The groom spot, well, no one cares about him anyway. You could probably do that and get away with it, but you don't do it to a bride. It's that sort of thing. We say don't do that. And sit in the very back. Lutherans take this passage to heart. Man, we are all over this. And friends, move up higher. And no one ever does. You know, it's okay. But we're just taking Scripture very literally, and that's all right. But do we do this with our lives? That's the question. Do we do this with our lives? Or somewhere? Now, we don't ever want to be honest about this. We don't ever want to become too vulnerable here. But somehow, some way, we want to make sure that we get the attention that we think we deserve. And so we might try to work that in where we get the attention. Instead of simply humbling ourselves and becoming servant to all. We heard that last week, and I pray that it was in one of our devotions this week, and I pray that we will think about that. What does this really mean? The final verse. Everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. It's primarily humbling ourselves at the feet of Jesus as a servant, and then serving the people that he loves, the people in this world. Will they sometimes look different than us? Yes. Are we still supposed to serve them? Yes. I think where we really find that we can get caught up is we kind of like to surround ourselves with people that are a lot like us. And we really don't want to have to go through the work that it involves to pour into someone who's different. Now, if we're being honest, could anyone say that that sometimes describes them a little bit? And I'm raising my hand. I think it describes a lot of us. I really do. That when people are very different than us, they have a different life, they have a different nationality, ethnicity, it could be anything. Maybe they have a different faith. And we have a really hard time with trying to pour into them and love them and serve them. And yet, God doesn't discriminate. So anyway, he tells us to be the servant, to humble ourselves. And he's telling this to these Pharisees sitting while he's dining at their table. Now we go on to the second part of the story. While he's still dining with them, we're at the same dinner. And in verse 12 it says this. He said also to the man who had invited him, when you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers, or your relatives, or your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return, and you can be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. Here's where I think we start to go, okay, maybe it does relate to me a little bit. Maybe in a way I do. Invite all the people that I'm kind of like and I like to be around, and I want to have them around. I don't want the blind around. They can't see. I have to lead them everywhere. And I definitely don't want the lame around, because they're lame. They complain all the time. And man, what a downer. Oh, goodness, just take them away. And the crippled people, well, I might have to get dirty and reach down and pick them up. And if they're crippled and they can't take care of bodily functions, maybe, and I might have to change a diaper or clean something up. And it really could be messy. And those poor people are just poor. What are they going to do for me? Now, again, we'd never use those words, would we? I mean, we'd never use those words. But I think we do that. We really do. And Jesus says, not my children. And not me, he says, as the Son of God. And as he's talking to this Pharisee that invited him, he's saying, not you either. Invite all those people. The poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. And you'll be blessed because they can't repay you. And you'll be repaid at the resurrection of the just. Now, it started to get a little bit uncomfortable here at this dinner meeting. And so one of them pipes in and says, let's change the subject and get off of the poor, crippled, lame, blind thing, and let's just move on. And so when one of those who reclined at the table with him heard these things, he said to him, blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God. Now, we could take that and go, oh, we got it. Blessed are all the poor and the lame and the blind and the crippled who will eat bread in the kingdom of God. That's not where he was going. He was a Pharisee. He was one of the Pharisees who was gathered together. And the Pharisees' belief was that the only people who would recline at the table with Jesus and enjoy the wedding feast, the great banquet, as he is declaring here, the feast in the kingdom of God, are going to be people just like him. They're going to be the chosen ones among the Jews and all the Pharisees and people just like himself. And so he gets away from the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind, and he tries to take it back to something much more comfortable. The Pharisees and the Jews and the people who were called because of God's promise to Abraham, and they were raised up from history on. And so Jesus, trying to correct this, says to this man, but he said to him, and he tells another parable. It's a story, but he tells it for a point. He says, a man once gave a great banquet and invited many. And at the time for the banquet, he sent his servant to say to those who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said to him, I've bought a field, and I must go out and see it. Please have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to examine them. Please have me excused." And another said, "I have married a wife, and she's very demanding." Oh, wait, sorry, that's not in there. You know, you gotta do something like that every once in a while. "And she is wonderful and a blessing to me." That's not in there either, but it's reality. "I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come." Why? Because there's a new responsibility. I can't come to the banquet. I have a new responsibility. I have a new commitment. I'm going to hang out with my wife, and I'm not going to worry about the banquet that I had RSVP'd to in advance. "I married a wife, and therefore I cannot come." The same could be true. "I married a husband, and therefore I cannot come." It doesn't matter. So the servant came and reported these things to the master. And then the master of the house, listen to this, he became angry. The master of the house here was going to be God. He became angry because he has reached out and invited all these people, and the ones who are invited are saying, "Nah, I don't really want to come now." Who are these people that he's talking about here? The Jews. His chosen people. The Jews that he said, "I've invited you, I called you, but now you've got to recognize who I am," because that's what it's all about. It's not that you were born into a Jewish family. It's not that you're born into a Lutheran family. It's not that you're born into any family. It's that you know and believe in and follow. You have faith in and you follow Jesus. It goes back to last week, and we're about to get to that in a moment. And so he's talking to these people who believe that they're invited to the banquet, and he's saying, "Y'all aren't going to show up because you're making all these excuses." So the servant came, reported these things to the master, and the master became angry. And he said to the servant, "Go out quickly to the streets and the lanes of the city." So it starts in the city. Okay, so these are going to be to other Jews. What do you find in the streets and the lanes of the city? Under the bridges and tucked in the alleys. What do you find there? You find the lame, the crippled, the poor, and the blind. So it ties back with what he was talking about. He says, "Go there, to the lanes and the streets of the city, and bring in the poor, and the crippled, and the blind, and the lame." And the servant said, "Sir, what you commanded has been done, and still there is room. You threw such a great party. You didn't exclude anyone. You want everyone to be able to be a part of this, and there's still room. More people can come." That's what God's saying. I want more and more people to come, and extending my invitation to everyone. So the master said to the servant, "Go out to the highways." Now you're going outside the city walls, and you're going to the highways that connect you with other cities and other countries and other people groups, people of different ethnicity and backgrounds. Go to the highways and the hedges. No, what's up with that? And compel people. It means urge them. Come, come. Because it's going to be the greatest thing you've ever known. Urge them to come, that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those men who were invited shall taste my banquet. So it's a harsh condemnation to the Pharisees whom he was with. But I think there's a word to us too. Don't rest on our laurels, what we were born into, our heritage, our roots, our ancestry. It's about faith and following Jesus. It's the narrow path that we talked about from Luke 13 last week. Now to close out this chapter, final verses. Let me read them all the way through and just say a couple words about them. And what I want to say in advance of them is this is a whole new situation now. Okay, the venue's changed. He's not with the Pharisees. He's not hanging out at dinner. Now he's out and about and he's surrounded by thousands of people again. Like he has been over the last few chapters that we've been looking at. So in verse 25 it says, "Now great crowds accompanied him. And he turned and he said to them," and I'm going to set this up just a wee little bit. If if you ever go to a church conference, it's a very interesting phenomenon that takes place, something amazing that happens. There's two questions that are asked when you meet someone that you've never met before, someone from another country, okay, or someone from another state, or someone even from another city who hasn't ever heard of you or your little church, quote-unquote little church, God's church, okay? But we kind of treat it that way. And so you go, and there's two questions that are asked, okay? And the first one is, so where are you from? And they don't just mean city. What they mean is what church you're from. What church do you pastor at? What church do you serve at? And then there's a second question that 99.9% of the time will follow that first question. Does anyone want to have a guess at what the second question would be that's asked at all these pastors' conferences and everything? Yeah, you might know. And Sarah might know, but that's like cheating. Okay? So, anyone have a guess?
What do you do?
Oh, that would be a great question, but no one really cares. Say that nice and loud, Tiffany.
How big is your congregation?
How big? How many do you worship? How successful are you? And what I love about what we're about to look at is Jesus single-handedly whittles thousands down to dozens. He is the greatest church killer in the world. Okay? I mean, he's got like this church of thousands of people who are, because he's healing and he's doing these miracles, and oh man, this guy's great. I want to wow, I just want to be about him. I want to follow him. I want to be around him. I want to just kind of soak up his aura because, oh wow, there's power coming out of his robes. This guy is amazing. Thousands upon thousands, they're stumbling over each other to get to him, and he whittles them down to dozens, maybe 100. He does it in the Gospel of John, and masses leave. And he looks at the few that are still following him, and he says, do you want to leave also? And they say some profound words. Lord, where would we go? Where would we go? You have the words of eternal life. Powerful words. And I don't even think they fully understood, but they said that. So Jesus, single-handedly here, is going to whittle down his followers from thousands upon thousands to only the committed. A year ago when we looked at all this stuff, we entitled this Foes, Fans, and Followers. We dealt with the foes. The thousands are the fans. And we're about to be whittled down to the followers. Because for Jesus, we're about to see, it wasn't about how many people can I get to follow. It is all about, do they know me? And are they truly following me? Not just fans who want to come along and be in the surroundings but not have any sacrifice. He says, who are the followers who are going to sacrifice and even suffer for my name? And so he preaches, and I guarantee you it whittles them down, and that's why he said, if you've got ears to hear, then hear. So here we go. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Period. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Period. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he laid a foundation and he's not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, the man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he's able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and he asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. Period. And then his final comment. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It can't. It is of no use, either for the soil or the manure pile. It's thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So those are the words of Jesus, and that's where we are. Med school and pre-med has weed out courses, and this is Jesus' weed out message. And it might actually seem a little mean. Why would he do that? I mean, I thought the invitation was for everyone. Question for you. Is the invitation for everyone? What's Jesus saying? Some are not going to accept the invitation. Because it's more than just, oh, that sounds great. That sounds really fun. I like music. I like to sing. It makes me happy. And I really like donuts. And coffee is my favorite. And so I'm all about this church thing. Because you sing and you have coffee and donuts. Great. Sign me up. And then we start thinking about what Jesus calls us to do in the sacrifice. And some people go, I'm not so sure I want to participate in that. And then we start talking about how it's not a wide path, it's a very narrow path. And the narrow path, and what I shared last week, it's two things. It's faith in Jesus. It boils down to that. Believing in Jesus. But then it's also following Jesus. Following His way for our lives. It isn't about I do whatever I want and I live however I want. It's about following His path. We don't earn it. It's in response to the one who gave us this gift of grace that welcomed us and invited us to be a part of His kingdom. Because He knows there's nothing better. And all I want to say today is Jesus, He really makes it serious here. And I think we need to evaluate ourselves. And I can't do that for you, and you can't do that for me. And you cannot do that for your spouse. You cannot do that for your children. They will have to do that for themselves. And your spouse will have to do it for themselves. And your friend will have to do it for themselves. And so let's not get caught up in the judging other people game and go, well, he's got a little work to do. Because he can look right back at me and go, you shouldn't be so bold standing up there in front of everybody. Because you're messed up too. Let's just look at ourselves. Just look at ourselves. But what I want to encourage you to do, because Jesus calls us to do this, is to think about it. Where am I? Am I a foe? I doubt it. Am I a fan? There's a lot of them in the world. Or am I truly faithful and committed follower of Jesus Christ? Which one? Jesus narrows it down to the narrow path. It says there's really only one answer. So we've got to kind of look. And if you do that, and then if you start to have some questions, like, okay, so PJ, what does this mean? And what about this? And what about this? Because I really struggle and I really mess up from time to time. And man, the three things that he said, oh, I'm supposed to hate my mother and my father? Some people are going, check. Okay, no, that isn't what it means. Hate my wife? No. Hate my brother or sister? That's easy. Man, wow, give me something hard to do. That just comes natural. No, that's not what it's about. Hate actually means prioritize. The word here in that culture means prioritize. You need to deprioritize your mom, your dad, your husband, your wife, and your children. And we are all about our children. I mean, we are like protective of our children. But he says, no, that isn't what matters. First is me. So you deprioritize everybody else, and Jesus becomes first. That was the first thing. And if Jesus isn't first, not my kids, not my spouse, not my parents, not my family, not my friend, Jesus isn't first, then he says, the first time, you cannot be my disciple. And then the second situation is just as strong. Okay, I'm getting the second and third mixed up. See, here's the pastor's struggle. You remember the second one? Without looking? No, without looking. Don't cheat. The second one. Whoever doesn't bear his own cross. Boy, how we all like to forget that one from time to time, don't we? I don't want to remember to bear my cross, because bearing a cross, is that easy or hard? Hard. Do I like easy or hard? I like easy. Do I like comfort, or do I like suffering and pain? I like comfort. Do I like where things are kind of more convenient, or do I want to go out of my way for the sake of the gospel to reach the lame and the crippled and the poor and the blind? I kind of want to stay where it's convenient. I don't want to take up my cross. And Jesus says, whoever does not bear his own cross and come and follow me, second time now, cannot be my disciple. And then finally, whoever doesn't renounce all cannot be my disciple. Now, that doesn't mean that we abandon our family. It means we deprioritize them and we make the king the king. It doesn't mean that we just have to suffer and beat ourselves with whips. Luther tried to figure that one out and it didn't work. It means we can receive the incredible grace and the love and the mercy of God. We don't have to beat ourselves up. But that because of the grace and the mercy of Jesus, that we seek to go where he leads us, and sometimes it might be uncomfortable. We might have to get our hands messy. We might have to give 30 extra minutes, or give an extra hour, or give an extra week, or give an extra year for something that I didn't really want to do, but it's for the sake of the kingdom. He called me to do it, so I have to be obedient. And then finally, the third one, it doesn't mean we have to get rid of everything. Okay? We have to be careful with this. I don't want to excuse it, but to renounce all that one has. There were still people who followed him who had great means, and they used that to support the ministry and even to build up and to keep the disciples and Jesus going from town to town and to make their way to Jerusalem. And so they still had land, and they still had houses, and they still had food, and they still had money. They didn't give it all up, but it means you renounce the rights to it. That's not the priority anymore. I'm going to use it for the sake of the kingdom. I'm going to hold on to it loosely and freely so that God can do with it what he wants, because he's going to take care of it. That's what it means. Doesn't mean we sell everything we have. But Jesus is calling us to do three things. And only you can look at your life and go, where am I? Where am I? And oh, for the grace of Jesus, all of us would have one answer. I'm a foe. Except for the grace of Jesus, we would all be in the foe camp. We would be at ends with God, enemies of God. But because of Jesus, we're not. We have the ability to come, and not just to be a fan, to move past the fan, an admirer, and to move to a follower, one who truly loves and wants to build up the kingdom of God. And I pray that that's what I will be. I can only look at myself, but then I pray that that's what we'll be.